Hey everyone, welcome back to What's Your Game Again. I'm Jesse Miller.
And I'm Jonathan Walter. Today we're going to talk about hidden role or social deduction games.
Yeah, these games are fun ways to get into gaming with a large group usually. People who aren't big board gamers, this is a great way to get them into something a little competitive, a little bit silly, a little bit deceptive sometimes. And these games are where somebody has a rule or a character that the rest of the group doesn't really understand or know about. So if you've ever played Mafia, it's kind of like that idea. Like you don't know who's being murdered or who the mafia is, who are the police force or whatever version you've played in the past. So that's kind of the idea of these kind of hidden role social deduction games, trying to figure out who's who and when before you're exposed. So a couple games to get into that. One of the first ones that I was introduced to is called One Night Ultimate Werewolf. This has been around for a while. It is a great party game. This is for 3 to 10 players, and there's a bunch of expansions out for it now. I think there's like One Night Ultimate Vampire or something like that as well. But basically, in this game, some people are the werewolf, and some people are the villagers, and the werewolves are trying to kill villagers and escape through the night, while the villagers are trying to figure out who the werewolves are. And it's a really quick game too. You can do a round of this in under 10 minutes, and you can keep playing multiple times. Just keep shuffling the cards and picking a new character or being dealt a new character. So really fun game.
There's an app with it.
Yeah, there's an app with it, so it adds a little bit of like instructions to how to go through it real quickly. It has some background noise and effects and stuff like that. But it's a really fun game trying to decide amongst you who's the werewolf, who is the traitor in the group. There's characters like the tanner, where you want to convince the group subtly that you're a werewolf, and so when they kill you, you're happy because you're the tanner and you wanted to be killed off. So that's how you win, even though you're not actually a werewolf. There's robbers, there's a troublemaker, there's a doppelganger. So there's all kinds of characters and there's all kinds of expansions. So this is a fun one to get into. Hidden role social deduction games, and it's pretty popular right now.
Yeah, another good thing about that is you can like include or take out different characters that you don't want and
Yeah.
put them into the app, and
Yeah.
it'll adjust to the game.
Yeah, it's always changing up a little bit. So, yeah.
Another game that we like is Bang, the dice game. There's a card game, but we're going to talk about the dice game. And in this game, you have different roles. You have the sheriff, the deputies, outlaws, and the renegades. And you have your dice. The sheriff is the only one who you know who it is.
Yeah.
And then the deputies are on the sheriff's team. The outlaws are together, and the renegades are pretty much for themselves.
Yeah.
You roll the dice, and depending on what dice you roll, you could either give yourself or others health, damage. There's arrows, which once all the arrows, if you roll an arrow, you take one, and once the supply of arrows are gone, then you take all the damage of everyone takes the damage of however many arrows they have. Then there's dynamite, which you get so many, you take damage yourself. But yeah, so the deputies are trying to help the sheriff. The outlaws are trying to kill the sheriff. And the renegades are trying to be the last one with just them and the sheriff, and they obviously want to kill the sheriff. But if there's two renegades, you still want to be the only renegade. You're not on the same team.
You're trying to figure out what's the motive for each person. You know who the sheriff is, like you said. Well, like for me, I've been the deputy so many times, and people never believe that I'm the deputy because I always seem to draw that card. I'm always claiming to be the deputy, so they don't trust me when I'm trying to help the sheriff.
A lot of outlaws
So
claim to be the deputies.
So yeah,
too,
it adds a lot of like, do we trust him right now? What's his tell? Like, is he lying to us? Like, why did he make that decision and attack that person? Why is he giving help to that person? So really fun game. That's also a game that certain people, you realize I never want to play that with them again. They don't like being lied to. Some people do not like these kinds of games. So you kind of got to leave that all behind when you're playing a board game.
Yeah, I remember one game I was called the worst deputy because I guess I wasn't healing good enough.
You have to heal a lot, I guess, if you're a
Yeah,
deputy.
it's for 3 to 8 players. So, and it's about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
Yeah, really fast, really quick game. A lot of these games are pretty quick. You're not spending hours on them. It's like half hour max, or multiple rounds in that. So for me, another awesome grouping of social deduction role playing games. They're by this company called Facade Games. They make these Dark Cities games, and all of them look like this, like sweet little books. I'm a big book guy, and so a game that looks like a book is awesome. But these games are really good for groups, usually like around 8 players. Usually some are more, some are right around that mark. One of their first ones that they created was Salem 1692. All of these games are based off of a location, a theme, and real people, historical events. And in this game, you're trying to figure out who among you is a witch. Is anybody a witch? And so that's the object of that game. And in Deadwood 1876, you're trying to figure out who there's different locations, 3 different locations, and each player will be in one of those 3, and sometimes there's groups. You want to know that the people in that group in that location with you have gold. Or are they lying? Do they actually have something to betray you later on? So what happens is you find at the end of a few rounds, you figure out which location has the most amount of gold, and then it's down to those people, if there's multiple people there, and then somebody has a chance to betray with guns the person who actually had the gold. So you're trying to figure out who's helpful for me, or whose group do I want to get in so I can betray them later on. Really fun game. Tortuga 1667. This is you are either the British or you are the French. And then there's a Dutch player. The Dutch player wants each the British and the French to have the same amount of gold, and that Dutch player wins. There's only one of them. Or you're English, you want the most amount of gold on your side of the ships, and the French want it on their side. The problem is you don't know who's actually English, you don't know who's actually French, or who's the Dutch player. So it's just a lot of like mutiny, trying to get people off your boat, get them onto the other boat, moving things around on your boat to get the most amount of gold in your cargo hold. So really fun game. And then lastly, this came out right during the pandemic. They had actually began the production and the campaign stuff right before the pandemic. This is Bristol 1350, and fittingly, you are trying to escape the city, get out from the plague. There's a plague happening, and this is all on historical events type of stuff, and so you're trying to get it out of Bristol without catching the plague. Problem is, you don't know who else is in your cart leaving the city with you, and do they have the plague, or are they clean? Are they lying? Because if you get out of the city with somebody who has the plague, you all have the plague and you're dead too. So really competitive, really hard, trying to figure out who's being honest among you. And there's all different varieties of how these games play. Each one's unique, but they all have a really cool historical theme. And you also have that same tying, connecting theme of like, I don't know who you really are. So cool games to check out. I love this series by Facade Games.
One of the first games I've played is Resistance, and this is a game where you're either the Resistance or you're the Spies, and players try to be the first team to 3 points, and you get a point by completing missions. There's 5 missions, and depending on how many players there are, depends on how many people have to go on different missions. There's a leader, and they give a gun token to whoever they want to go on the missions. And then everyone has a vote, an unanimous vote on whether they accept or deny the mission. If the mission is passed or accepted, then those people go on a mission, and then they vote also anonymously whether it's a success or a failure.
Yeah.
And obviously the rebels, the resistance wants it to be a success, and then the spies want it to fail. And if there's 3 successes, then the game you win, or the resistance wins. And if there's 3 fails, then the spies win. Yeah.
This is another. I mean, all these are similar games, and you don't know who's who, but it depends on the theme that you like. Like this is a great game for spy theme, like secret missions and like taking weapons in to complete a mission, and trying to figure out who is with you and why. How do we get this to pass? How do we get people who are against us out of this vote? And so that's another interesting one. You got to have the right people too.
Yeah.
One of Jonathan's friends ruined this game for us by playing the wrong cards, I think intentionally.
If you're the resistance, you have to play a success card.
Yeah.
So he was a resistance, and I even said, if you're resistance,
You have to.
play success, and he still failed it, and then we ended up losing.
So you want to play this for people who actually want to play the game, but or it'll be just annoying and complicated. So, yeah.
Very fun game.
Yeah. This is one that has won some awards. I think 2015. I just started playing it recently. I played it multiple times with friends and with family. It's real quick to learn. It's kind of a combination of a couple different styles of games, but I really enjoy it. I think you will too. It's Deception, Murder, and Hong Kong. And in this game, somebody is the forensic scientist, and there's been a murder that's already happened, and you randomly deal out the cards to where one person will be the murderer, and everybody else will be investigators. There might be a witness if you put that card in there. There's an expansion that was made for this with all new items and ways that people have murdered each other. So basically what happens is if you're the forensic scientist, you have these tiles in front of you that help lead everybody else to figuring out who the murderer is. And so you have so many rounds to figure out who is the murderer and what did they use. So each person in front of them will have a variety of cards with different things. It could be a gun, it could be a bathtub, it could be a rubber ducky, it could be a bunch of random items. Some are weapons, some are not weapons, but that whenever that murderer is selected, everybody's eyes are shut, and that murderer will show the forensic scientist two of those things that the murder was done with. There's a clue left behind, and there's an item that was used. And the forensic scientist's goal is to get everybody to figure that out. And that can be really difficult, or it can be really easy, depending on the way the tiles are flipped and what the forensic scientist has to work with. So it's a really fun game to kind of get people thinking on the same wavelength, getting people to identify out of all the cards on all the table who has the one that actually did the crime. Now, another variation to this, or a part of the game that makes it complex, is when you have a witness, that person will know secretly who did the murder, but they won't know with what items. And they can't give it away that they know exactly who it was, because if the murderer is picked and selected, they figure it out. If he knows who the witness is, he can kill the witness as one final push for victory and win if he kills the witness. So really fun game, pretty quick, like less than 20 minutes. Another one of those games that I find, if we play in an hour, we're doing 3 or 4 rounds of this game. So fun game to kind of work with a group of people.
If you like this game, then you'll probably, or if you've played Mysterium, that has obscure cues where someone's trying to direct you in the right direction, or Rear Window that just recently came out is also like that.
Yeah, those are good games.
Another game is Secrets by Eric Lang, one of Jesse's favorite designers.
Yeah.
And that is, you play one of 3 roles. You use either the CIA, the KGB, or the hippies. And the CIA is on a team, and the KGB is on a team. And the hippies are like the renegades, where they're independent. And so everyone gets their tokens, and they get to look at their tokens at the beginning of the game. And depending on how many players there are, you could also look at your player to the right's token. And there's also one in the center, and with the most players, you get to look at that too. But after you look at it, you can't look at it again unless you're one of your character cards. There's character cards in these games, and they are collected. And once you get 5, the game is over. But each character card lets you have a different thing you could do. Like you could switch tokens with people. Sometimes you have to reveal your token once you receive it. But once you gain 5 tokens, the CIA, if they all have a number of points on them. The CIA, if they have the most points collectively, then they win. The KGB, if they have the most, they win. But if the hippies have the fewest, then they win, regardless of what the other ones are. So, but yeah, very fun game. And the last game I'm going to talk about is Secret Hitler.
Yeah, this is a pretty popular one.
Yes.
Right now. And it's a catchy name for a game, too.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, what's that
Secret
about?
Hitler.
And you are either the fascists or the liberals, and then there's a secret Hitler who is a part of the fascists. And so the rules are, if you have so many policy cards, and there's a president and a chancellor, and those could be anybody. They could be either the fascists or the liberals. And the president will choose a chancellor. Everyone gets to vote on it. And then the president will draw 3 cards. They're either fascist policies or liberal policies. They pick 2 out of the 3 and they slide it to the chancellor. And the chancellor chooses for the cards what they pick. They could pick depending on what side they are. They're going to either pick the fascists or the liberals, or they could pick a liberal if they're a fascist, just to throw people off. And once the liberals win by enacting 5 liberal policies or killing Hitler, and the fascist wins by either passing 6 fascist policies or 3 and having Hitler as the chancellor.
Once again, this is a game you want to play with people who like can quickly pick up these simple rules. It's not difficult, and then like
It sounds worse than it is.
yeah, and then play through it. Because I know when you played last, it was almost blown at the very end.
So it was blown.
They got a little too excited and announced that they thought they won, and it wasn't quite over, and they kind of ruined the game. So, but these are fun group games. Well, yeah, we want to give you an introduction to this style of game. I think that many of you will have parties or hangout nights with 5 or more people, and these would be great introductions to playing together. So if you want to get away from your trivia night, if you want to get away from, Pictionary and fun games that are party games, some catchphrase, stuff like that I love. If you want to move away from that a little bit, these are some great games to introduce. So we hope that this helps you out. We hope you discover what's your game again. And yeah, thanks for watching, and check us out next time.